Let me officially welcome you, Shep, on this very special day, Customer Experience Day. It's such a pleasure to have you join us. So thank you to start with for giving up your valuable time.
Oh, my pleasure. And let me make it the official my pleasure.
Thank you.
Never no problem, always my pleasure.
Perfect. Well, I love that. And actually, I'm so looking forward to chatting with you because you've probably seen my radio face many times over the last few years, but we've never actually spoken to each other. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to have a natter, as we like to say in the UK. That might be a word you've not come across many times before, but we're going to ramble at each other for the next 15 minutes or so and hope that others find it of interest.
I hope so.
So for those of you who don't know Shep, which there can't be many of you who don't know Shep, he is someone who, again, I would describe as a bit of a pioneer when it comes to establishing an understanding of not just customer experience, but also customer service and everything else in between. He calls himself the Chief Amazement Officer, which is something I'm going to grill him on momentarily. And as many of you will know, he is a globally renowned keynote speaker, author. He's a best-selling author with the New York Times, amongst various other things. And he is hugely inspirational to many around the world. And that's why it's fantastic to have him with us today. Shep, let's start this because many people will have seen you describe yourself as Chief Amazement Officer, but what does that actually mean?
Well, it's, I could have been the CEO, but somebody already had that title. But seriously, if you look at my books, I did the Amazement Revolution, Be Amazing or Go Home, Amaze Every Customer Every Time. I saw that word amazing popping up in my life, in my writings over and over and over again. And one day I just decided, how about Chief Amazement Officer? I read an article about creative titles. And for example, the receptionist should be called the Manager of First Impressions. So I took on Chief Amazement Officer. By the way, we have the Director of Reputation, she manages all our social media. I know Jesslyn, who's actually helping us today, her original title that she took over was the Manager of Many Things. And she does many things, but we've got a new title for her now. And of course, my assistant, the Director of Details. So we've got all kinds of fun titles. And I think we should have fun. It doesn't change the culture much, but it kind of gives you an idea of the kind of company we are.
Which is brilliant. And I must admit, I would much rather be the Chief Amazement Officer than the Director of Details. But that's
kidding.
That's a different matter altogether. That word amazing is something that I completely resonate with it. But in the current environment that we're finding ourselves in, how do we get people to feel amazing when in reality, the world is crumbling around them, almost literally? How do we bring amazing into our lives in very challenging times like these?
Well, the first is to understand what the definition of amazement is, at least my definition. And it's not about being over the top and blowing people away. It's about a consistent and predictable above average experience. And it doesn't have to be much above average. It's just a little, because what you want your clients, customers, guests, members, whatever you want to call them, to say about you is simply this: I love doing business with them. They are always so knowledgeable. They always get back to me quickly. They are always so friendly. They always are understanding. The word always followed by something positive. Again, it doesn't mean you have to go over the top to do this. It's just be consistently and predictably a little above average. And once in a while, when there is a real issue or a problem and you have that opportunity to do above and beyond, well, then you can. But Horst Schulze, you may or may not know who that is. I hope you do. Yes. The first president and co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton chain. He and I have been preaching this for years and years, and I had a chance to talk to him in the last couple of years several times, and I asked him, how much better than average do you think people have to be? And he said, just 10% better than average. Yeah. And if you think about it, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is bad and 5 is excellent or amazing, 3 is average. So if you're a 3.3 or better, you get to be amazing. And that's because you never drop to mediocrity. You never drop to satisfactory. And that doesn't, we're not talking about like when there's a problem, because problems present themselves and it's how you respond to them.
Yeah.
But it's the overall experience that people have day in, day out, or interaction after interaction, above average all of the time.
I completely agree with you. In fact, I talk a lot about the Ritz-Carlton, as many of our peers will do. And I will say that what the Ritz-Carlton does is it's actually a bit of a miracle. But it's a miracle because they've got so many people around the world to all believe in doing the same thing. But what's wonderful about the miracle is that it's not complicated. You know, it's actually quite simple when you look underneath what they've managed to do. But what I'm interested to understand from your perspective is that it doesn't take a lot to do something above average. But why do so many organizations find it almost impossible? You know, why do so many organizations think that, you know, going above and beyond is that doesn't make money? You know, it's that's not the thing that's going to make me money. Focusing on my spreadsheet and, you know, getting the numbers, and why is it so difficult for companies to grasp this?
So I think the word or the phrase you just used, above and beyond, really is reserved for isolated incidents. And if you try to tell, by the way, I lost a really great speaking engagement because the CEO of a company did not agree with this concept. He said, I want every interaction our people have with their customers to be like the best they've ever had. I go, you can't do that. If I'm calling you to say, you know, I call my cable TV company and say, hey, can you tell me, and this is the truth, can you tell me what channel the NHL Stanley Cup game is on? Because you flip, you know, you change the numbers. Oh, let me give you the most amazing experience. It's channel 1253. Does that make you happy? I mean, no, you can't be over the top every time. And I think that's the mistake. And because of that, people say, or executives say, you know, we're not going to invest in that over the top experience. You don't have to. What you have to do, in my opinion, is you train people properly. First, obviously, hire the right people to begin with. Then onboard them properly, but it doesn't stop there. Training isn't something you did, it's something you do, and it's ongoing. So customer experience and customer service is not like a department or just a strategy. It's cultural, and everybody needs to understand what their part is. And the way you keep it ingrained in everybody's brain is to consistently and basically on an ongoing cadence, put it in front of them. The easiest way, and you know, talk about the Ritz-Carlton again, every single day, pre-shift meeting, 5 minutes long, they talk about one of their gold standards. There's 24 of them, and at the end of 24, they go to the 25th day, they start over with number 1. What I do, and we teach our clients to do, is to have different team members share examples of when they've created that positive experience. Positive experience could be that above and beyond, but most of the time it's the client was happy because I called them back in 15 minutes. Or I emailed somebody back in 30 minutes and thought, wow, that's amazing, especially when the average response time on email is well over a day for most companies. So those little, I guess, you know, things, if you can share them in the form of story, keeps the ideas in front of everyone. And then if you ask everybody to participate in sharing their story once a week, once every other week, just write down 2 or 3 sentences. When did I do something good for one of my either customers or internal customers, my colleagues? And that just kind of keeps it all front of mind. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I think it's a very powerful concept and something to work on.
Again, you know, I'm absolutely certain that everyone listening to this agrees with your every word.
Thank you.
You know, but again, it's so frustrating because to us, what we're describing here is this is really not difficult to understand, but we still live in a world where it does not happen enough. And the question I'd like to ask you is that when we think about the most customer-centric organizations in the world, the ones that don't have to think about doing the things that you've just described because it's just intuitive and natural to what they do, they are few and far between. But many of those organizations share that desire to never stop learning. So they're continually educating. Why again, I know that this is your opinion and perspective, but why do we still find organizations that leaders or supposed people who are driving the direction of the organization, why do we still find so many people that think they know everything already and don't think that there is anything left to learn?
Wow. I'm shocked that anybody would feel that way, but unfortunately, you are true and accurate with that statement. I don't know if it's a majority or a mass of people that feel exactly that way, but here's where the disconnect comes in. There are great companies out there, and there's plenty of them. And what happens is they set the bar high for everyone else. And even companies that are doing better and better still aren't meeting the expectations of the customer, because the customer no longer compares a company to direct competition. They compare to the best service they've ever had, which raises the bar high for everybody, doesn't it? So where I find the real disconnect comes with leadership is that they think their experience that they're providing for their customers is better than it actually is.
Yes.
All the stats and facts show there's this huge delta or gap between what the executives think's really going on and what's really happening from the customer's point of view. And we want to narrow that gap, if not, eliminate it altogether. Some companies have done that for almost all of their customers. And again, those are the ones that set the bar high. But I think the best thing for executives to do is spend time on the front line. Matter of fact, some companies require all executives or directors, anybody in a management leadership level, to go and spend a certain amount of time either on the front line at a support center or driving around with a salesperson once a quarter. I mean, I wrote about this back in 1989, my first book, Moments of Magic. One of my clients was Anheuser-Busch, and they required an executive once a quarter to go out and drive around in a beer truck and meet the people that are buying the beer, the grocery stores, the restaurants, the hospitality venues, the hotels, just so that they can understand and experience what's really happening. And then there's TV shows like Undercover Boss. I don't know if it's worldwide or not, but here in the U.S., oh, it is. Great. Yep. I mean, you see these bosses go undercover and they're blown away by what they learn about how either bad or good their company's doing and doing it right. And this is what leadership has to do. They have to get down, get in the trenches, get dirty, and understand.
So let me take this to another, and I don't want this to sound as though I'm picking specifically just on leaders, but it's easy.
Why not? They're easy targets.
Absolutely. Very often people will say to me, Ian, does the platform need to be burning before these guys, wake up and smell the coffee? In reality, very often it is the burning platform that gets them to wake up and smell the coffee. Now, we don't just have a burning platform in 2020, we have a burning planet,
yes,
for want of a better analogy. And have you seen the pandemic change the way people are thinking, leaders are thinking? What I'd like really people to hear is that there is positivity out of all of this. There is hope. And what kind of things have you seen?
Well, I'm a very optimistic person. I'm realistically optimistic. If you ask me if the glass is half empty or half full, my first answer is yes, it is. And then my second answer is, but I see it as a half full thing. So here's what I think happened. Our planet came to an abrupt halt, especially in the customer service and experience world, specifically support centers. And I have talked to so many managers and leaders of support centers worldwide. One in particular I enjoyed talking to has 62 support centers worldwide with 60,000 employees. And within 1 week, he had to mobilize that entire workforce. About 15% were already working from home, but the other 85%, 60,000 employees, whatever 85% of, it's 50 some odd thousand. They had to go to work at home. And he said, within 1 week we got there. And I said, what are you gonna keep that you changed, that you don't wanna go back to? And the first thing he said is, well, we're not gonna lose any people, but we're definitely gonna shut down support centers because we don't need everybody. And all of this was like a learning experience. But that is really a metaphor for everything that's happening. We have been forced into the future by 3 to 5 years. And I think that's a good thing. There's going to be some great innovation happening as a result of the pandemic, but what's happened in the last 6, 7 months is the adoption of existing innovation or existing technology that's moving us forward. The adoption of wow, we should have been treating our customers a certain way. We're now doing it when we should have been doing it last year and the year before. We're now doing it, and we've been pushed further than we normally would be at the pace that we've done. So I think there's some positivity going on there. Are there some bad things? The death, the destruction, the struggle for companies? No doubt. But I see companies who are adapting when things go back to what you might call somewhat normal, as in 2019, the way we did business. You're not going to have that way again one day soon, I hope, but you're also going to have the addition of what we've grown with the past 7 months to layer on top of that. So I think we're in a potentially winning situation once we get through this pandemic.
Yep. Again, I completely agree. I think, and I can see comments coming in as you're speaking, that there is a lot of agreement that this has just accelerated. It's accelerated adoption. It's accelerated failure. Regrettably, some of the organizations that will cease to exist would have done anyway. And when you add to that, the real positivity of, I think, a greater acknowledgement of the importance of people. I'd love to speak to you all day, but you're a busy man and have got other things to do.
I'm good for another minute. No, I'm good. I'm fine. We have no worries on time. We want these people today who are attending this to say, wow, this was a 100%. Phenomenal day. And this is hopefully just a little icing on the top of that.
I completely agree. The thing for me is I'm hoping that even if 1% of organizations around the world have, as a result of this situation, realized how important people are, then maybe this has all been worth it. And, I think, yes, we have seen, as we know, that this is proof if we need it. We're doing this digitally online through a screen. Digital adoption has increased. The obsession with digital will continue to increase, but we can't do any of this without people. And, we've never been able to do any of this without people. And I'd love to know what your guidance to businesses, organizations in all industries would be. What do we need to be thinking about to ensure that people remain at the center of what we do? Not just customers, but as importantly, employees.
Yeah. So I wanted to break into song. People who need people are the luckiest people. And, okay, that's a Barbra Streisand reference.
You can sing if you want to.
Yeah, I don't know. You do not want to hear me sing. So I agree. If there was a prediction, and I've already started to think about my predictions for 2021, one of the words, actually, I think it's a big word. It's been used for years and years, but maybe more important than ever today, and that word is empathy. Yeah. And how do you do empathy in a digital experience? Very few companies can do that. You can't really automate a relationship. Amazon has been successful at it. Zappos, who's owned by Amazon, is successful. And I think one of the reasons they're so successful is because there's a phone number for you to call somebody on every page of their website when there's a problem. And a pretty amazing percentage of people actually call that number, even though they're an online, retailer. Yep. So they've managed to move from, automation and digital to the human experience. But it really is a combination of the two. And the danger companies are going to have as they move forward is to say, hey, let's start automating and digitizing. And that way, we don't have to talk to the customer. And maybe they don't consciously say that, but when the customer does want to talk to somebody, it needs to happen. It needs to happen seamlessly and easily. Otherwise, customers will give you about one shot at it on, we all have seen the stats.
Yes. We
interviewed over 1,000 consumers and they said 96% said bad customer experience, I'm leaving. Okay. And 60% of that 96 said, I'm extremely willing to leave, meaning you don't get a whole lot of opportunity. So we've got to make it right. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I think back to the whole idea of people. AI is a phenomenal resource for basics, but when it comes to something more complicated, we've got to let that customer talk to the live agent in a support center. And here's where AI, I think, really does a great job. When it doesn't support the customer, but it supports the employee, helping understand the questions that the customer has. AI, a good machine, could listen in on the conversation, feed the employee great information to share on a human level this information. In addition to that, the AI can tell us who the customer is. They can tell us who the customer may match up to. Maybe we're a large brand that has tens of thousands of customers, and this customer is just like 5,000 of our other customers, exactly like them. So we can predict what the next question is going to be, the next product they're going to buy, based on the behavior of 5,000 other matching customers with uncanny results. So when we have that information, think of how much better we can provide service and sales and support to that customer. It's an amazing experience. And I think that's what I most get excited about when I see technology and AI being used to integrate the human-to-human experience.
And that is a wonderful way for us to bring this short conversation to a close. Shep, I cannot explain just how grateful we are to you for joining us today. If you do not follow Shep, then I urge you to do so. If you, again, are an avid reader, then there are multiple books. There are too many books for me to mention right now. There is the latest one. Oh no, there's more. So Shep has all of his books.
Just
if
kidding.
you want his book, then you must buy it. And at some point, Shep, you and I will have a longer conversation together about all of these things. But for now, on behalf of everyone listening around the world, a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for giving us some positivity today. And I'm sure much of what you have said will remain amazingly in people's brains for a long time to come. Thank you so much, Shep.
Thank you for having me here. A pleasure and an honor, and happy CX Day.
Thank you so much.